Hello, people online. We're streaming on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Duke 1517 on YouTube. 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead on Facebook. It's going to be a show tonight. Grab onto your seats. Hold on. This is info you don't want to miss. Not a problem.
Thank you.
Make sure you invite your friends. Share this out. More people watching, the more fun we have. And it's a holiday weekend. What's different about a holiday during the pandemic? Well, I don't know. I don't know what's different about the holidays. You know? It's just another day. But it's the last holiday of the season, of the summer season. And we're moving into fall. Means we gotta get a bunch of stuff done. So do what you can. Share this out. Make things available for other people to see. Have them join in. Enjoy the show tonight.
Good evening and welcome everyone to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight, I am going to be doing a show on something related to the Butterfly Center. I've done shows about the Butterfly Center in the past. Excuse me, I'm having a technical difficulty over here. I've done shows about the Butterfly Center, the Texas camps near the Butterfly Center.
You just unplugged your keyboard, you know.
I just unplugged my what?
Keyboard.
I did? I did not need to do that. Okay, how about that?
Oh, we'll see.
So the shows that I've been doing about this Butterfly Center have been with regard to the wall, the border wall that was going to be built at this location. And for those of you who've been following my programs, you know that I told you from the very beginning where they set up this encampment for Antifa and for the Border Support Network activists. I told you that there was a manufactured crisis at the Butterfly Center, that they weren't going to stop the wall from being built, that they were going to be fundraising and that they were going to be embroiled in a long, drawn-out lawsuit, etc. We've seen it since Standing Rock, the same type of modus operandi. And tonight, I am going to tell you how all of these activists at this Border Support Network camp in Texas, next to the Butterfly Center, are involved in the lawsuit against We Build the Wall, are involved in the campaign to shut down the construction of the border wall, to smear Fisher Industries of North Dakota, to make the wall construction and the president look bad, and to smear the We Build a Wall organization, which, as you know, has had members of its board arrested, including Steve Bannon. If you haven't had a chance to share this program with groups in which people who need to see this information associated with the construction of the border wall, please do that right now. The information that will be compiled within this show needs to be seen by the Fisher Industries, We Build a Wall nonprofit, the people that donated or are following the story of the We Build a Wall arrests, and the lawyers for either Bannon, what's the other guy's name? His name is escaping me right now. Colfage or Fisher Industries, because I think they're going to be fascinated with the information I'm about to give you. I think you're all going to be very fascinated. But first, I want to summarize what you were going to hear in this show, what this show is going to be about. Okay? And in a real quick snapshot of what you're going to find out today, the arrests of Bannon and Colfage, the attacks on Fisher Industries in North Dakota, one of the contractors that was hired by We Build a Wall to build a section of the wall in Sunland Park in El Paso, and that is being sued by this National Butterfly Center. They do not know the history, the background of the Butterfly Center Executive Director, Marianne Trevino Wright, or the encampment that I have been reporting on for over a year, connected to a lot of shady figures who are on watch lists and who are part of a broad investigation into smuggling of people across the U.S. border. So tonight, I'm going to uncover what this woman's history is, how she's involved in this current lawsuit, and what you need to know about her her presentation, her history, her story, her propaganda regarding the border wall. Back in April of was it 18 or 19? When we went to 19.
Yeah, 19.
In April of 2019, Duke and I traveled to San Diego, California, where we were set to present our research and findings along with Professor Guadalupe Correa Cabrera at the American Borderland Studies Conference. If you recall, we were censored and silenced and moved from one venue to the other so that we were not able to adequately give our presentation the way it was meant to be given. Nor were we allowed to share it, to videotape it and share it. And we were accosted and attacked for presenting this information. In May of 2019, later that year, another Borderland conference took place in which that presentation was shared without my being able to present, but in video form, I was also featured and present in the presentation that was made in May of 2019 in Brownsville, Texas. It is at this particular conference that the executive director of the Butterfly Center, Mary Ann Trevino Wright, spoke of her history with the border wall, her fight against the building of that border wall, and her history of events. The accusations, the allegations that she makes not only against Fisher Industries, but also against Border Patrol, members of Congress, and the Trump administration. So I'm going to be playing excerpts of that presentation for all of you to hear. And I want you to know that I have several recordings of Mary Ann Trevino Wright, which I will be sharing tonight, and in future shows, in which she makes some damning allegations against our president and a bunch of other people, unfounded allegations that she makes against our president and a number of other people, which I think will be very enlightening to all of those listening and watching, especially those currently embroiled in some kind of lawsuit with the Butterfly Center. So stay tuned for all of that tonight. First, I want to thank all of you for supporting our station and for sending us messages on show topics. How can folks get?
Well, you can get a hold of us many ways, and thank you for supporting us. We have people who are monthly donors. I'd like to do a shout out to them. If you ever let me say your name, I'll say it out loud, but thank you very much for the support. You can look at our past shows on kpppfm.com. You also can make a donation to our station at kpppfm.com/donate, a tax-deductible donation to help our station run, help us keep going forward into the future. This is a pandemic. We're still working. We're still putting content out. Tonight's show is full of information you won't get anywhere else. You can go to Facebook and find us at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead. And on YouTube, it's Duke 1517. We're streaming on YouTube and Facebook tonight. And you can also give us a call and leave a message on our message line at 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917. You can email Cindy at kpppfm.com and me, Duke, at kpppfm.com.
As many of you know, I'm a paralegal by training, and the way in which I put together my shows, I collect evidence and I submit that evidence to you, my audience, so that you can take a look at it and make your own decision about what all of this stuff means, right? I always bring receipts. And to that end, for those of you watching on Facebook anyway, you will see all of the links to my previous shows about the encampments at the border near the Butterfly Center, where Mary Ann Trevino is the executive director. I also want to tell you that from the beginning of my investigations and research into the encampment, the Butterfly Center, their lawsuit and their claims, their allegations, I have criticized what Mary Ann Trevino Wright has said because she has made a lot of allegations of being accosted, harassed, having the land on which the Butterfly Center sits being trespassed upon illegally, that she has been, mistreated, removed unfairly from meetings that she had always been a part of in an attempt to threaten her, to harass her. And of course, all of the claims that she has made about the treatment that she's gotten from Border Patrol to members of Congress, etc., she claims to have recorded them and claims to have the proof of them, but I have yet to see any proof, the videos, the photos. I have yet to see the concrete evidence of the allegations that she is making. Maybe she's saving those for court. I don't know. What I can tell you is that her claims seem far-fetched. That she, like many of the people that preceded her, that I have featured on my program and that have to do with the Border Support Network, have raised undisclosed amounts of money through GoFraudMe's, through fundraisers, through grants, through nonprofits, through NGOs, etc., for their encampments, for the Border Support Network activists, for their campaigns, for asylum seekers, etc., etc. And they have been doing this under no scrutiny, right? They have not been investigated for their funding sources and where that money is going to. And furthermore, many of them claim that they are, or I'm not saying they're not currently involved in lawsuits, but they start lawsuits against this administration that they rarely conclude and for which they've raised, in many cases, millions of dollars that we don't have any accountability for. The way that things were done at Standing Rock is that the Native people and their allies, along with archaeologists that were allies of the tribe, hired by the tribe, whatever their relationship to the tribe was, the ultimate goal was to have these engineers and these archaeologists report that there are sacred artifacts, burials, and other reasons, according to the engineers, that the pipeline that was going to be placed in North Dakota, the Dakota Access Pipeline, could not be built. There was a number of reasons, and they were put into reports that were going to be used in the lawsuits against Trump to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. Guess what, folks? Nobody stopped the Dakota Access Pipeline. Many of the lawsuits that they started against the Dakota Access Pipeline against the Trump administration disappeared, along with all the millions of dollars they raised to sue the Trump administration. And back then, it became very clear to me that because of the hatred that many people have for this president and this particular administration and their energy policy, that if you want to raise millions of dollars to go and sue Trump, regardless of whether or not you intend to sue Trump, you can easily raise a lot of money. And that's what has happened again and again and again with the lawyers and also with this Butterfly Center. So let me share with you a small clip of how Marianne Trevino-Wright began her presentation at this conference in Brownsville, Texas, to a group of academics, and this conference was about borderland security. Let me set the scene. Imagine in your mind a woman, a teary-eyed woman, standing in front of a group of academics, lighting a big white candle. Listen to the clip.
I wanted to do something that Francis suggested, and that is to light a candle for the 6 migrant children that we know have been lost in the custody of Customs and Border Protection, and keep that in mind as I recount. Actually, it's kind of a vivisection of border wall construction and public policy as it continues to take place here in South Texas and across the borderlands.
Okay, so she started a presentation about the Butterfly Center and the border wall construction by memorializing the 6 children that had died in custody of Border Patrol. I showed you that many of these activists, especially those associated with the Caravan Support Network, use the bodies of these dead immigrant children as props. As props that get to your heart and pull on your heartstrings so that you are distracted from looking at them, at the activists, at what their claims and allegations are. Let me share with you the recent El Paso Times article in which they talk about this lawsuit and the arrest of Steve Bannon. I'll share the link with my followers so you can go check this out. It says former Trump chief strategist Steve Bannon, We Build the Wall founder Brian Colfage, and 2 others connected to the organization are accused of siphoning donor money to pay off personal debt and fund lavish lifestyles. They could face up to 20 years in prison on each of the 2 counts that they face. They've pleaded not guilty, and Bannon has called the charges a plot to stop the border wall construction. And let me tell you, it is indeed a plot. Let me share this second image from the El Paso Times, in which they talk about the engineering reports. Okay, so let's take a look at the engineering reports. The report is one of 2 new studies set to be filed in federal court this week that found numerous deficiencies in the 3-mile border fence built this year by North Dakota-based Fisher Sand and Gravel. The reports confirm earlier reports from ProPublica and the Texas Tribune, which found segments of the structure were in danger of overturning due to extensive erosion, if not fixed and properly maintained. Fisher Industries dismissed the concerns as normal post-construction issues. So, Fisher Industries is saying there's nothing out of the ordinary here. Your reports are exaggerated or wrong or something, right? Mm-hmm. For those who did not have the experience of the reports and the studies that came out from the allies of people against the pipeline in North Dakota, this doesn't seem familiar. This doesn't make sense. And the appearance of criminality on the part of We Build a Wall and its board members, Colfage, Bannon, etc., not to mention the knee-jerk reaction to the fact that the wall was constructed poorly and is going to basically fall over into the river. these ideas are things that people that are against the wall and that have been against the wall's construction have wanted people to believe from the beginning. They said that this wall wouldn't help stop illegal migration. They said that the wall wouldn't be feasible to be built there. And so the release of these reports and the timing of the release of these reports is just further proof that they're using this lawsuit and this information and these arrests for a propaganda show on what they want you to believe is a fraudulent construction and a fraudulent organization. Take a look at this section of the El Paso Times in which they talk about Tommy Fisher's company and him being the president. They say that he's a frequent guest on Fox News and has called the Rio Grande fence the Lamborghini of border walls, and bragged that his company's methods could help Trump reach his election day goal of about 500 new miles of barrier along the southern border. In this next part of the article, you will see how they're using this story to taint the image of the company and mock the build. It says the Tribune and the ProPublica reports likened the wall to a used Toyota Yaris, making fun of the comment by the president that it was a Lamborghini. And they go on to quote him saying, the professor of civil engineering at U of Texas in El Paso, as saying, it's not a Lamborghini, it's a $500 used car. Since Fisher companies embarked on construction of the Rio Grande fence, the Trump administration has awarded about $2 billion in federal contracts to the firms to build segments of the border wall in other locations. And then, of course, it mentions here that Fisher agreed to the inspection and these reports by these engineering firms as part of an ongoing lawsuit against their company by the National Butterfly Center. Okay? So this is all part of a lawsuit, and the release of these reports and the way they're being reported upon is all meant to make it very clear that the company, who is obviously biased because they go on Fox News, has done a horrible job, and that they also had some kind of quid pro quo relationship with the Trump administration and got billions of dollars worth of contracts to construct more wall. Here's another excerpt from the article in which they talk about the engineer hired by the Butterfly Center and the reports that they put out saying that the wall was not suited to be on this type of land in this specific place. Here's another excerpt from the newspaper in which they talk about the second report from the engineering group, which was also paid for, hired by the National Butterfly Center. Okay, well, let me just tell you that the Butterfly Center was somewhere in obscurity, that Marianne Trevino Wright, prior to Trump being president, had nothing to do and didn't care about Obama putting kids in cages or separating families, people crossing illegally at the border wall, the building of border or construction of border wall. And she has a very good excuse as to why, which she's going to talk about in a clip I'm about to play for you here in a moment. But also you should know that in upcoming clips, not only does she confirm that the president did intend, what was it going to be building a border wall from one end of our country's southern border to the other, from San Diego to Brownsville, Texas, essentially, but that the Trump administration had already managed to fund most of the build, while at the same time publicly, like you see in this article, they try to make it appear that this is a Mickey Mouse organization, a Mickey Mouse company, corrupt people, criminals that couldn't build a border wall or fund it, and that they're funding it fraudulently. In the conference, she is recorded saying that she knows the president's going to build the wall, that he's already doing it, and he's got most of the build funded. Okay? Take a look at this other excerpt. It says, Tommy Fisher said Tuesday he couldn't comment on the reports because he hadn't reviewed them, but he added his company has fixed all of the erosion. He's quoted as saying he feels very comfortable with the work that they have done. So, let me just make things very clear to you. This is smoke and mirrors. It is 2 months before the election, and so what we need, what the propaganda that is supposed to be going out there needs to do is make you feel like, A, the president lied about his intention to build the wall. B, he chose the worst possible people to be associated with in these corrupt We Build the Wall organization, and that the wall that was built is horrible, and the company that built it is also horrible. But let me assure you that Fisher Industries and We Build a Wall, I believe, are going to come out on the other side of this, possibly after the elections have already taken place, but they're going to be coming out of the other side of this with very little, if any, consequences to their companies or to their organizations. Take a look at what this article says, quotes about Fisher Industries and the reports that they said are a hit piece against Fisher Industries, calling them absolute nonsense. He said, I would invite any one of these engineers that so-called said it was going to fall over. I'll meet them there next week. If you don't know what you're talking about, you probably shouldn't start talking, he said. It's working unbelievably well. There's a little erosion maintenance that we have to maintain. So I believe, and time will speak for itself, that all of this will be resolved. That this, fear tactic of saying that, that they're winning, that they've already won, that the arrests mean something, that the investigations mean something, and that these reports mean that the wall was done poorly and that Fisher Industries is horrible. I think all of these things are going to be fleshed out, and they will be favorable to Fisher Industries and to We Build a Wall people. I mean, just think for a moment about every organization, every GoFundMe, every lawyers group that I've shared with you, raised millions of dollars on my program. I've shared with you how much money they've raised for these campaigns, for these lawsuits, for these organizations that are committing fraud, that are involved in criminal enterprise, and they haven't been investigated. They haven't been arrested. Nobody has done anything about them. But the We Build a Wall people who are alleged to have taken $1 million, are facing 20 years. I have questions about how it is possible that there isn't more evidence to the allegations that are being made about this particular build, this particular company, and this particular part of the wall at the Butterfly Center. Let's listen to what Marianne Trevino-Wright in her presentation at this Borderland conference in May of 2019 said about the background of her work.
So I understand my presentation description addressed the 7 years. We don't have time for 7 years. In 2014, when President Obama deployed troops to the Rio Grande Valley, we had them stationed on the levee at the National Butterfly Center. We did not invite them. Of course, it's something we had no say in. But we did welcome them. We even hosted a giant community potluck for them at the National Butterfly Center between Christmas and Thanksgiving, and really extended a warm welcome for these young men and women from the Texas and Oklahoma National Guard who had no say in their deployment. They were away from their families over the holidays, and we truly believed that they were here on a humanitarian mission. It was during the midst of the child surge, the unaccompanied minors, and much of what we were seeing out in our section of the Lower Rio Grande Valley Wildlife Conservation Corridor was unaccompanied children. And the National Guard, they would drive up and out changing shifts with their Humvees loaded with water. And they would give water to the children and others that approached them and waited to be picked up by Border Patrol. Of course, then we began to learn about Obama being the deporter-in-chief and other things. So I had been asked about 2007, 8, 9, where was I? Where was the National Butterfly Center in relation to the border wall back then? In 2007, I was in Houston. I left my husband. I had a 2.5-year divorce that was horrible, to say the least. And I confess, I was not involved in this fight 10 years ago. I was involved in a much different fight. But here we are now.
Okay. I think that it's important for you to know that last year, after we were snubbed and censored at the Borderland Conference in San Diego, Guadalupe made a commitment to present our work at future conferences and to record the entirety of the presentation so that we could share it with our audience as we had promised we would do with the San Diego presentation. Albeit without me present, except in video form, but we do have a link to that entire presentation that we will be sharing with you so that you can go and watch the presentation that the professor from George Mason University about the investigation of network analysis of some of the activists involved in the Caravan Support Network that was presented at this particular conference that Marianne is speaking at in the recording that you're listening to. Marianne Trevino-Wright being the executive director of the National Butterfly Center in Mission, Texas. And I want you to know that Marianne Trevino-Wright attacked Professor Correa Cabrera, physically harangued her, kind of pushing her against a wall, putting her up against a wall, attacked her for her presentation. And I'm going to be sharing audio clips in the future of those attacks, but I want you to know that the presentation included an analysis of many of the activists and Antifa leadership and indigenous leaders that I told you were at Standing Rock and which were involved with Antifa organizing around the caravans. And she was working with those people. Here's a picture of her with Dwayne Redwater, one of the many activists that went to Tijuana with Evan K. Duke III and Myron Dewey. And Warren, the man that has the tattooed face and the tattooed arm, wearing the Carrizo Come Crudo shirt. Warren is an Antifa activist and sex worker, one of Lilith Sinclair's pals. You remember those folks, don't you? The reason why she attacked our work, our network analysis, is because it focused on people that were being investigated for sex trafficking children in Mexico, like O.J. Pitaya, who in this post shares the Butterfly Center's video and quotes the director Marianne Trevino Wright of the National Butterfly Center about the border wall being built. The reason why Marianne Trevino Wright attacked our reporting, my research, and the work and investigation of this professor, Guadalupe Correa Cabrera, is because we were analyzing the involvement of the non-federally recognized tribe, the Carrizo Come Crudo, and the Tohono O'odham involvement in the Caravan Support Network. And we were calling out with the network analysis their involvement in the movement of undocumented immigrants, many of whom were being smuggled. Okay? Here is another clip from Marianne's Trevino Wright's presentation at the Borderland Conference in Texas in May of 2019. Listen to her talking about how Border Patrol and others began to harass her on her private property.
So I understand my presentation description addressed the 7 years. We don't have time for 7 years. In 2014, when President Obama deployed troops to the Rio Grande Valley, we had them stationed on the levee at the National Butterfly Center. We did not invite them. Of course, it's something we had no say in. But we did welcome them. We even hosted a giant community potluck for them at the National Butterfly Center between Christmas and Thanksgiving, and really extended a warm welcome for these young men and women from the Texas and Oklahoma National Guard who had no say in their deployment. They were away from their families over the holidays, and we truly believed that they were here on a humanitarian mission. It was during the midst of the child surge, the unaccompanied minors, and much of what we were seeing out in our section of the Lower Rio Grande Valley Wildlife Conservation Corridor was unaccompanied.
No, that's not. That's the same clip that you had already played previously with the background of this clip. We probably mislabeled it or something there. Was supposed to contain information about the Border Patrol coming onto the Butterfly Center's private property and basically telling her that her posting on.
So I understand my.
This is the background clip.
Yeah, that's the background clip. But the one we need is the harassment clip.
Okay.
See, because you played the background clip twice now.
Okay.
So what we need is the harassment clip. And the harassment clip is.
So I understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
My presentation description address the 7 years. We don't have time for 7 years.
It's the same one.
Yep, it's mislabeled. So
In 2014, when
That's not the harassment clip. So what I'll just talk about what was in the clip. You'll be able to hear the entirety of her presentation by going to the link that Nemo can share with everyone, contained in the in our program called the Marianne Trevino Wright April 24, 2019 presentation at the Border by the Sea Texas Rio Grande Valley Conference. The link is available in the comments of the show. Nemo will share that for all of you. And so you can listen to everything that she alleges was done to her, was done to the Butterfly Center, to their property, the threats that were made by Border Patrol, and so on and so forth. I apologize that we had the wrong clip for you, so we can't play that. But just know that she made a lot of allegations of being harassed. And I want to share with you how, the victimization that's taken place here is it hides the actual rage that this executive director and many of these activists have toward this administration, the building of the border wall, etc. Here's a tweet by the National Butterfly Center with regard to the arrests of Bannon and others associated with Fisher Industries and the We Build a Wall. They tweeted, "We told you so. From the beginning, we said this was a Bannon scheme to raise dark money for the administration and help at Fisher Sand G defraud the government. We are sure there will be more coming out. Just wait. Oh, and suck it at Brian Colfage." So they are celebrating the arrests and saying, taking credit, right? Taking some credit. We told you, Butterfly Center told you that this is a scheme to defraud the government, that Fisher Industries is defrauding the government. This is what they're doing. This is how they're doing it. Because, yes, it's their narrative. The Butterfly Center has been setting up this narrative where they are the victims, where she specifically is the victim and also the hero that stopped the building of the border wall, and where the Butterfly Center is the one that comes out on top against all of this villainous group of people. Here's another tweet in which they are celebrating. Someone mentions that National Butterfly Center, that Brian Colfage was involved with Cambridge Analytica and was also on the board of the Federalist Society. And someone else tweets, "Oh my gosh, I am so here for salty, vindicated butterfly Twitter." And National Butterfly Center tweets, "Thank you. We are soaring on the thoughts of their cavity searches." This is a National Butterfly Center currently involved in this lawsuit that I've been talking to you, talking about how they're fantasizing about Bannon and Colfage having body cavity searches after their arrests. Here's another tweet. And in this tweet, I don't know why our stream is looking so blurry. Is there blurriness on your end?
No.
In this other tweet, someone says, Kristen Sheldon says, "This is how I want the GOP to be destroyed. By butterflies and frogs and owls and cacti. Brought low by science and art and love and truth." And the National Butterfly Center responds, "We want this too. Our friends, the frogs, owls, and cactus are rejoicing, and thank you for your support of science, art, love, and truth." Here's the bottom line, folks. Because the way that this president speaks, the way that he has expressed himself, the very open disagreements he's had with scientists and with people who are not, with engineers, etc. Trump has set himself up, or they've put him in this frame where he's against science. So the Butterfly Center has set itself up as the science, the reports, the engineering that are going to bring low the organization building the wall, the construction company, Bannon, and also this administration. Going back to Mary Ann Trevino Wright's presentation at the Borderland Conference in Texas in May of 2019, she gives some history on what happened at the Butterfly Center. Take a listen.
So, July 21st, after we announced on Facebook what we had discovered in terms of the government contractors on our property, July 21st, I got to work and 5 Border Patrol agents came to see me. They showed up to the National Butterfly Center to tell me that what I was reporting on Facebook had not happened. I recorded this meeting as I record every meeting with any government official. And I said, really, get in your trucks, boys, and let's go over the levee. And we went over the levee. The heavy equipment was there. The felled trees were there. The widening of the road, the mowing of the brush was all obvious and undeniable. These 5 guys who were all out of McAllen Station, front line, I guess relatively low level in the scheme of the hierarchy, were shocked. They promised to get answers and promised that somebody from the Customs and Border Protection Real Estate Office would be in touch with me immediately. Well, it took several days. I never did hear from anyone in the real estate office, but an agent got back to me and said August 1st I would have a meeting with someone from the real estate office. The morning of August 1st, I got a text message that that meeting was canceled. And when I said why, I was told that they were not ready to speak to me yet. So I went to work, and that morning, Chief Manuel Padilla, former chief of the RGB sector, showed up unannounced, with no appointment, in plain clothes, with his attaché and 1 agent. He showed me posters of what the border wall was going to look like, and as said in the film, he kind of went full Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator and said, "We'll be back." And we'll be back with green uniform presence. And we did press him. We said, "You mean armed federal agents on private property?" And he said, "Yes, to protect the contractors, because people like you tend to get really upset when we exercise eminent domain to take their land." And this has been absolutely true. None of the contractors from the beginning have had any private security. They all have a minimum of 1 Border Patrol agent assigned to them for their personal protection. That's our tax dollars at work, guarding these for-profit company employees as they do the bidding of the government.
Okay. So what you just heard is the executive director of the National Butterfly Center in a presentation on border security in Brownsville, Texas in May of 2019, saying that plainclothes Border Patrol agents came to her private property and basically told her that they've got posters and signs, they're going to get security ready, and they're going to be protecting the construction company that's building the section of the border wall, because people like her and her Butterfly Center and the activists there tend to get mad when eminent domain is used to take their property. and that is exactly what happened, and that they have Border Patrol using federal dollars and federal agents to protect what she calls goons building the border wall. Now, listen to how she alleges that all of these activities, the harassment, the overreach, the threats. I mean, she's comparing to the Border Patrol agent that came there to threaten her, basically, as being like the Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? She's painting a picture. These folks are very intimidating. And in this clip, she's going to talk about how all of this was done before Congress appropriated funds to build the wall. Take a listen.
We went through many things very quickly. The first thing I did after notifying my boss, who was in the process of burying his wife, was make contact with Congressman Cuellar's office. I was handed over to Stacey Forbes. Anyone in this room who has dealt with Stacey knows he is the CBP fellow who works for Congressman Cuellar. I told him what I had discovered, what was happening on our land, and his response was, "¿Y qué?"
So his response
was... gives me chills as I think back to Todd and so many of your other presentations in terms of the long game, the government's planning, the foreknowledge. Everybody knew this was going to happen except the American public, except the landowners. And they were doing it ahead of congressional approval, ahead of any appropriation. Law and order be damned.
Law and order be damned. The American people were not told. The landowners were not told. All of these shenanigans taking place, according to the allegations of Marianne Trevino Wright, were taking place ahead of congressional appropriations for the build of the wall. This is a fascinating presentation she gave. Fascinating allegations that she has made. Fascinating because they were made in a public forum to a group of academics, one of whom she attacked for presenting information that contradicted her activities. And also, because it is recorded for posterity what she has said, which I think will be very interesting to those currently embroiled in lawsuits with the National Butterfly Center. The things she says during this presentation are very crazy and far-fetched, including the allegation you are about to hear, which leans on the edge of conspiracy theories, that Border Patrol agents that were murdered were actually killed to fund the border wall. Listen for yourselves. Here she goes.
The last thing that happened in this period before we filed suit, as Trump was pushing for border wall funding, and we were in the midst of the budget battle at the end of that year, already overdue for approval of a fiscal budget, we had the November 19th death of Border Patrol Agent Rogelio Martinez. You all can remember that? The two agents in Nogales, one killed, one with no memory of what happened. I awoke to President Trump's tweet that day. Our brave men and women murdered by illegals. We must build the wall. And I turned to my husband and I said, these poor men have been martyred for border wall funding. And to this date, there's been no disclosure of the investigation of what really killed them, other than pronouncements from the FBI and the Sheriff's Department that they were not killed by illegals.
Now, if it's not real clear that she is making this far-fetched allegation that somehow the president had something to do with the death of that border agent and the shooting of these border agents so that they could be martyred for funding the border wall, If it doesn't sound real clear to you, let me tell you that there are subsequent recordings of her fleshing out this topic in which she elaborates to say that it's really, really odd that these Border Patrol agents were killed, or were shot and nearly killed, and one was killed, one was nearly killed, because being a Border Patrol agent isn't that dangerous of a job. And this, something like this rarely, if ever, happens. And the timing of it was exactly when Trump needed to fund the border wall. So, it's very interesting. We never did find out what happened. Remember, this woman was used in Congress. She went to Washington 2, 3, 4 times, I think, to go and testify before Congress in this particular case with Chairman Raul Grijalva's Democrats Border Wall Forum, and went to meet with staff of Chuck Schumer, of Nancy Pelosi, and of the Department of Homeland Security. Now, let me have you listen to, or here's a clip of the video that I'm going to share with you that has the presentation of Guadalupe Correa Cabrera and my research about the activists at these border camps in the Border Support Network. Here's a clip.
Many things that I have done have been because of you. Thank you very much, Terry, for all the support that you always gave me, that you gave me for 8 years when I was living at the river. And you were the first person who opened the doors for me to this town, to the border. Thanks for having me here. It's a privilege, it's an honor to be here speaking at my former institution, my school, my home. It's very important for me. It's a very important city for me. I am going to present my new research that's not it's a little bit controversial. I have been living at the border and doing research connected to irregular immigration, and I talk about irregular immigration.
Now, this presentation, as you can see there, is called The Truth About the Caravan, a network analysis of American pseudo-activism and Homeland Security. Attended by Professor Scott Nichols, which is the co-chair of the Sierra Club's Borderland campaign. So the reason I mention this is because the assertions I am about to show you made by Marianne Trevino Wright, the executive director of the Butterfly Center, about our presentation and about our work, is that in this presentation, which was recorded, which you can go and listen to in its entirety, she claims that this presentation, this research by Guadalupe Correa Cabrera is funded by the Department of Homeland Security, by the Trump administration, by the government, somehow trying to link our work, our research, and say that it's biased. Duke, could you talk a little bit about what it was like when we went to the ABS conference and how we were treated?
Well, it was actually not a very good experience because I've been to a lot of conferences, and Cindy was going to speak with the professor and do a presentation, and they did a lot of work on it. And as the thing I didn't like is that we had to pay a bunch of money. Like, it was a lot of money. $90 each or something to go to this presentation that Cindy was presenting. So as a presenter, she had to buy a membership in the organization and pay a fee. I thought, well, we got by that, and the thing is that when it came to our presentation, suddenly it wasn't on the books. It wasn't scheduled. There was nothing on the doorways. They moved, once they had it in one place, they moved it to another place, and they didn't announce where it was moved to. I'm surprised that people even showed up. There weren't that many people there, and it was outside the main area where the whole conference was happening. It had a suite of rooms and a center place where people were getting together and having refreshments and relaxing. like a balcony area, and they had these meeting rooms all around the central area. They took Cindy's and Guadalupe's presentation and they moved it across the hallway, down the hall by the bathrooms, in a whole different area of the hotel. And when we were there, they stood up and said, "You can't record anything." I'm like, "You can't record anything?" Nope, no pictures, no audio recording, nothing. And one of the guys that was in the audience, who was one of the members of the group, was standing up and taking pictures of people and doing selfies and doing these things. And I'm like, well, he's taking pictures, and these guys, I guess, who were part of the leadership of the organization, stood there and looked at me the whole time. And they're like, "Are you going to try to record this? We told you can't record this." And I'm like, "Jesus, you never. How come you're not enforcing this, with everybody else in this conference? Why are you hassling me about it?" And they definitely didn't want anything recorded of the presentation, which I thought was weird because both the speakers agreed to have themselves recorded. We went there as, to do reports as a radio station, and we needed audio and video for our report that we're going to do about the conference. So we were treated hostily and all sorts of, it was not good.
And that was just with regard to our presentation. That does not encompass the Q&A after one of the keynote speakers from the Crooked Lawyers Group, Al Otro Lado, Nicole Ramos, was questioned by yours truly and other members of the public, and people were thrown out of that event. Amy and Melinda of San Diego attended that conference event and were kicked out by the people of the American Borderland Conference organization. So what we were accused of by Nicole Ramos was of trying to badger her or harass her. And if you will recall, I questioned her about, and Amy had questioned her about, Al Otro Lado giving people legal advice and practicing law without a license in Mexico. And the very next day, after I questioned her at this conference, I went over the border to Tijuana, met up with Oscar El Blue Ramirez, asked him to take me to a location I had been investigating because of the activist activities. And she was there. Nicole Ramos was there, unbeknownst to me or any of the people I was with. But she claimed upon her return to the conference, which lasted several days, that we had followed her into Mexico to harass her. Now I want to show you the barrage of tweets that the Butterfly Center and Nicole Ramos put out this summer, just a couple of months ago. I was very surprised because I hadn't talked about the Butterfly Center, Marianne Wright Trevino, Al Otro Lado, and their crooked lawyer, Nicole Ramos, in a long time. How long has it been since I brought those women up? It's been a while, yeah. Right, guys?
6 months,
At least 6 months I hadn't talked about them. I hadn't talked about what they were doing, right? And then all of a sudden, in fact, I think it was on around the night of the first show where I talked about Paloma Zúñiga this year, that this barrage of tweets came out. Take a look. The National Butterfly tweeted in a response to a couple of individuals there, R. Devro and Martin Gugino, that the Department of Homeland Security is paying academics at George Mason University like Guadalupe Correa Cabrera to map and research social networks of activists for targeting. This is how they are identifying, surveilling, and snatching them now. She presented her research at a conference in May of 2019, and then she attaches an excerpt of the paper that I just showed you a presentation of, a clip of the presentation of, okay? Here is another tweet in which Nicole Ramos responds to the National Butterfly Center, retweeting what they just said, and adding that at DHS pays Guadalupe Correa Cabrera to defame me. Again, this is Nicole Ramos, one of the crooked lawyers with Al Otro Lado that were performing fake marriages, creating fake families, etc. in Tijuana. The woman that I questioned at this Borderland conference, and she says she's not surprised that DHS would be paying Guadalupe Correa Cabrera, this professor, to defame her. As the lies are being exposed and you're getting your ass handed to you in court, the natural go-to is hiring an unrespected academic to legitimize the fascist narrative under the guise of a study. Notice, these folks, this Al Otro Lado Crooked Lawyers Group and the Butterfly Center have gone out of their way to attack both myself as a reporter and this professor who is an expert in human smuggling and trafficking, and the cartels in Mexico. An expert, a researcher, an author on the topic. And these two women from the Butterfly Center and from Al Otro Lado with the Crooked Lawyers Group have been trying to defame and to delegitimize the work and the research of yours truly and this professor because of what we found, because of what we uncovered. And they make the assertion that we're being paid by the Department of Homeland Security. I'm not being paid by the Department of Homeland Security.
Nope.
We survive off of the donations of listeners and viewers like you. I am not beholden to a corporate sponsor, a politician. I'm not beholden to an NGO. I'm not beholden to anyone but my listeners and my viewers. If you support my work, I keep putting out reports for you. That's how this works. But they're making these assertions because they want to demonize and say that our work is biased. And they wanted to discredit it by any means necessary because of what it implies about her Butterfly Center, and all of the concocted fantasy of lies that she created that brings us to the present lawsuit against We Build the Wall and the construction company. So take a look at this other tweet. In this tweet, can you go back a tweet? We missed a tweet here. Okay. Can you scroll down to the bottom of that tweet?
Sure.
Okay. All right, now let's go to the next one. Okay. In this tweet, the National Butterfly Center responds to Professor Correa Cabrera and the other people that were in the tweet thread saying, to Guadalupe, did you or did you not present slides with your social mapping of activists, including Mark Lane, that's Mark Lane of the Minority Humanitarian Foundation, Evan K. Duke III, that's Antifa leader and founder of the Border Support Network, Evan K. Duke. Hashtag Standing Rock activists and others at this conference, where you stated this work was funded by and for U.S. government, specifically the Department of Homeland Security. Remember, there were 24 people present. Can you scroll down to the bottom of that tweet, please?
This is the bottom.
Are you sure? Okay. Go to the next one, please. So, Guadalupe corrected the Butterfly Center and told them that she had previously received State Department funding for a book that she did on a different project that had nothing to do with immigration or the border wall. And the National Butterfly Center responds saying, so grant funding from the State Department, not DHS, at least for some work? Got it. We apologize if the work and work product are not funded by DHS, but state, so it can be shared with DHS. Well, once again, they're miscategorizing what Correa Cabrera had said about previous funding that she received from the State Department for a completely unrelated project. And so the National Butterfly Center goes on to say, your program, can we put that slide up, please? Your program was recently, quote, she was recently the principal investigator of research grant to study organized crime and trafficking in persons in Central America and along Mexico's eastern migration routes, supported by the Department of State's Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking. It doesn't say funded, it says supported by. So they are, again, trying to demonize the work that we're doing because the work that we are doing exposes what they are criminally a part of. That is why. And notice how they're defending specific people like Mark Lane and Evan Duke. Take a look at this other tweet. By the way, thank you for your support if you're sending donations on YouTube. Miss Red Badger, we appreciate your support all the time. It's what keeps the lights on around here in the studio. Here's another tweet. Again, you guys can go and listen to the whole presentation. At no point does Guadalupe Correa Cabrera say that I or she are funded in the work that we have done by this administration or any part of it. But they insisted that we were. And they also said she did the same against Mark Lane and at Minority Humanitarian Foundation when she spoke at the conference in Brownsville. In response to Nicole Ramos saying, uncoincidentally, last spring, she teamed up in her quote-unquote research with quote-unquote journalist Cindy Schempp Gomez. That woman can never say my name correctly.
That's right.
Cindy Schempp Gomez. Well, my name is Cindy Gomez-Schempp. She calls me a wingnut radio personality in North Dakota who just a few years ago was doxing DAPL water protectors, but then turned her attention to quote-unquote investigating and quote-unquote exposing border activists. There's no quote-unquote. I got your number. I got your number. I got Marianne's number. And I didn't just question you about practicing law without a license in Mexico. I went and collected receipts and contracts that showed that you were. I proved that you were creating fake families and that you were involved with the activists that were kidnapping an unaccompanied minor. So the things that I've uncovered, I have receipts for that I have proven on this show. But again, this is a campaign by these individuals that we have been investigating to censor us and shut us down so that no one will know what exactly they are up to. Take a look at these tweets. The National Butterfly Center responds, yes, she disclosed their arrangement at the conference. She's talking about Guadalupe telling everyone that she gets paid by the Department of Homeland Security. Once again, none of that is true, nor is it in the conference presentation by Guadalupe that you can listen to for yourselves. But she tweeted this defamatory information anyway. She goes on, could it be Energy Transfer Part? Oh, one must wonder who funds Cindy. Could it be Energy Transfer Partners or perhaps entities like Tiger Swan? Maybe some dark money fundraising scheme by Steve Bannon, similar to We Build a Wall or the Centennial Institute?
Yeah, right.
Just because you fantasize and make things up in your head doesn't make them true. And then after they fantasize about who may be funding me, the people funding me are my viewers and listeners. This is what Nicole Ramos said about Guadalupe at the Borderland Studies Association conference, saying that Guadalupe was a moderator for her panel at the Borderland Studies Association conference last year until she explained to the organizers that she was using it as an opportunity to harass a person she'd never even asked to interview. So instead, she and Cindy sat in the front row taking my photo.
What a crime.
We were allowed to take her photo. We were, as Duke just explained, we were treated horribly. We were targeted and not allowed to record the interviews, the events that took place that everyone else was recording, and that prior to this particular workshop, everyone had been recording and taking photos at. So they wanted to mischaracterize Guadalupe and myself as threats to them personally and to their organizations and their work because we have exposed what they're doing. Here's what the National Butterfly Center said about me. I've never spoken to this woman, and I can assure you the National Butterfly Center and Nicole Ramos don't know what they're talking about. They haven't got a clue about anything relating to me, to my organization, to my work. But this is what they asserted. We have been told Cindy is Koch funded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the Koch brothers. And then Nicole says in response, not surprising given that Koch funds at George Mason University. I guess loads of money makes the fact that Guadalupe studies and defames human subjects without IRB approval not particularly consequential. Who needs academic integrity when you have an endowment? Okay? This is what they want you to believe. Don't look at the work. Don't look at the research. Don't look at the evidence. You're just supposed to believe their tweets, their allegations, their cuckoo allegations that everything that we've said is a lie and that we're funded by the bad guys. So the government or this president or whoever it is that is the boogeyman behind our funding. And that makes us bad and our reporting biased. But tweeting about it, lying about it, for as long as these people have, doesn't make it true. Here's another tweet by Nicole Ramos saying that Guadalupe has specifically targeted her research, quote unquote, against Al Otro Lado and made numerous defamatory statements. Just this month, she was presenting her evidence at ELCOLF. I'm assuming that that's a conference. No doubt not revealing to those who invited her that her research is funded by the Department of Homeland Security and she has no IRB approval.
Well, just lies after lies after lies.
They've been attacking the work of Guadalupe Correa Cabrera ever since she started sharing yours truly's research and investigations. And I'm sorry that I've been documenting all of this information for so long and so well. It's well documented. And they've been going, Nicole Ramos, the Butterfly Center people, on their press junkets, speaking at colleges, speaking at different events, speaking at different conferences. Well, here's an example of one where they are peddling their own propaganda. Nicole says, want to inspire the next generation of lawyers to burn this trash system to the ground? She's talking about our government and our justice system, by the way, that she calls a trash system. I'm planning a syllabus and I'd love your ideas for reading on the interplay between immigration court and federal court, theory of evidence gathering. identifying patterns, plaintiffs, and human rights monitoring. Also, looking for readings on the criminalization of asylum and human rights defenders, sanctuary movements, and the use of FOIA requests to force government truth-telling, or other things that you think are important and related to dismantling this flaming dumpster fire called the Department of Homeland Security. She calls the Department of Homeland Security, which she accused us of being funded by, a flaming dumpster fire. In the presentation, let me show you this Institute of Inequality. One of the many places where she was a guest. Al Otro Lado was a guest. They're going around and sharing their version of what they feel is human rights work. And of course, I've shown you that they work and have no problem being associated with anarchist leaders, with people that have criminal records, that have been meth addicts, sex abusers, felons that have been convicted for human smuggling. They don't have a problem with having those people at the Butterfly Center's camp. And I want you to listen to another excerpt from the presentation of Marianne Wright Trevino, the Butterfly Center's director, in which she brings up Vander Swan and his arrest. Take a listen.
There was an April 13th sentencing of the first person prosecuted by the Mueller investigation. His name was Alex Vander Swan. And at the end of this, we'll go back to Alex.
And I want you guys to go and listen to her full presentation. Take the time to listen to her full presentation and share it to other people, because it is a web of crazy conspiracies and, in my opinion, exaggerations, if not full-out falsehoods, against the Trump administration and a whole host of other boogeymen. She brings up Vander Swan, and she tries to associate the president, the We Build a Wall people, to every unsavory person that they can think of, so that they can guilt them by association. In this next clip, she talks about being arrested, one of the many harrowing acts that she has had to undertake to protect this wall from being built.
The patrol agent in charge of the McAllen station came in and told me that my invitation to the meeting was officially revoked. I was now trespassing at a federal facility, and I needed to leave of my own accord, or they would take all necessary measures to remove me. And I told her I wasn't leaving, and she said, "Don't make me humiliate you." And I said, "I'm afraid, Melissa, you must grossly underestimate my capacity for humiliation." And they did call McAllen PD, and I was forcibly removed from the meeting. I was escorted out the back of the building, put in the back of a patrol car, my first time ever, and the police, who were very nice and apologized to me profusely because they couldn't understand what was happening. I wasn't being disruptive. They didn't know why they were being involved. They dropped me off at my car in front of the building.
So she got arrested, or she got put in the back of a police car. There is a lot of theatrics behind this because, as you know, most of these folks end up in a documentary like she did. Hers is called Ay Mariposa, which is the Spanish word for butterfly. And as you can see here, Marianne Trevino Ford is featured in this documentary about the border wall at the Butterfly Center, and how the border wall will strike a fatal blow to one of the richest natural and cultural regions in North America. This is one of the movies that was presented at this Borderland conference in May of 2019, along with her presentation. And in this next clip, you're going to hear her talk about one of the times that President Trump went to McAllen, Texas, and met with Border Patrol. This is what she said happened. Oh, wait. Let me show you the clip from the movie Ay Mariposa, in which she is featured. It's very dramatic. Take a look at this from the trailer of Ay Mariposa, her film.
Build that wall. 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 Build that wall.
We're at the crossroads of the richest biological environment in North America. I can't imagine anyone who would not be upset with that prospect of having their life's work undone. To destroy thousands of acres of public and private lands.
¿Dónde va a quedar toda esta mariposa?
Condemn thousands of wildlife species. And create a barren, no man's land behind an artificial barrier. There was no border wall in South Texas. There was only levee fencing. Every office we visited seemed to have some version of that same border wall.
Very dramatic.
Yeah.
And I will share the link to her congressional testimony. You saw part of her congressional testimony there in the film. Claims, including the fact that the proposed section of the wall was going to have massive openings for vehicles to get through.
Yeah.
And that there were going to be codes that you needed to enter in order to open. And for anyone that has an easement or had to go through those walls, they would be given access to the codes. And the members of one of the members of Congress asks her, I'm assuming that this makes it a lot easier for criminals involved with the cartels that are smuggling people and things to get through the border, because you know the wall has this opening where you type in a code and you can get through. And she says, oh yeah, she said, you don't have to bribe border agents anymore. All you have to do is become a member of the National Butterfly Center. And then she laughs. Mm-hmm. It was like, I'm going to be giving out the code to smugglers is what the implication was.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. Isn't that funny? I'll share the link with you guys so you can go check it out. I mean, it's truly incredible to me that nobody has scrutinized the claims of this woman, the hijinks that went on at these encampments and at the Butterfly Center. I mean, this truly, the whole thing is a joke of unimagined proportions. And it is all for show. It is all part of a show. It is all part of this theater, of this spectacle prior to the elections. I mean, that's all that it is. And it doesn't even matter whether or not, at the end of the day, this dog and pony show results in anything. The goal is meant to have people not have faith in the wall, not have faith in the president, not have faith in the construction companies, to lose trust with the We Build a Wall people, with Bannon, with all of these things. To lose trust, to lose faith, and to make people outraged. I will also share the link to the conference page where all of this took place, so you guys can go and check out all the details for yourself. But in this next clip, you're going to hear her talking about how one of the only times that Trump was in Texas to meet about the border wall, he met with a criminal because that's what he likes. He likes hanging out with criminals. Take a listen.
Shortly after that, December 22nd, we had our first government shutdown under the Trump administration. On January 10th, President Trump came to McAllen. He hosted a border security roundtable at the McAllen Border Patrol Station. The only civilian given a seat at the table with the President of the United States was Monty Aubrey, a convicted felon, the son of a convicted drug runner, a man who gave the president this belt buckle from his own company, Cascabel Productions. My mother always says, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Cascabel is rattlesnake, for those of you who don't know. And the president joked, this video is available, that he was being bribed, and someone would need to look into this, because this belt buckle could be a bribe. Ha ha ha. Monty is a contractor who's been sued repeatedly for not paying his subcontractors, and is currently being prosecuted for non-payment of his taxes. He's a serial drunk driver. He has been prosecuted for aggravated assault, all kinds of things. Go to mugshots.com for a better look at Monty Aubrey and search for him by county. These are the people, in case anyone in this room didn't know, that our president chooses to associate with and surround himself with.
So, here's Monty Aubrey giving President Trump that belt buckle. This is what she's referring to. Here's a clip of that visit.
A rancher gives President Trump a giant belt buckle to give to his youngest son, Barron. Monty Aubrey says it's a thank you for the administration's effort to build the southern border wall.
He's bribing the president. I want this to be out in the open, everybody. I don't know if this is worth 10 cents or if it's worth $50,000. Anyway, well, that's very nice.
Aubrey spoke at a roundtable event with the president in McAllen, Texas.
It looks like he was, it looked like a joke to me, tongue in cheek there, pretty much. What I wanted to share with you about the characterization that she makes is because throughout her presentation at this conference, and here's the website that this conference was listed on. It's the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. The name of the conference was On the Border by the Sea. It was a Homeland Security Conference. And as you can see from the spotlighted speakers, one of the speakers, there's not very many, Todd Miller, Tony Payan, and Guadalupe Correa Cabrera are spotlighted. The professor that presented our network analysis was one of the featured speakers. Marianne Trevino also spoke at this particular event, which is what you have been listening to tonight. I recommend, for those of you who have not done it, to go and listen to the entirety of Marianne Trevino Wright's presentation, but listen to this final clip in which she talks about her trip to Washington, D.C. and who she met.
January 16th, I went to Washington for the second time, I believe. It might have been the third. I testified before the House Committee on Natural Resource Conservation. I also met with the staffs from Senator Schumer's office, Representative Pelosi's office, and the Department of Homeland Security Committee. As someone else stated, I think at least the representatives and senators never meet with you unless you're writing them a big check. They don't have the time. But I did ask each of the staffs, looking them in the face, how they made the decision my community and laid out many of the impacts, economic, environmental, and other, and really tried to shame them.
That's the goal here. At the end of the day, this is about shame. Shaming the company from North Dakota that helped to build this wall, shaming the organization that funded the build, shaming the people that were arrested and alleged to have committed fraud, and shaming the president and this administration for hiring them, for working with them. There hasn't been yet a true investigation, a deep dive into Marianne Wright, Trevino Wright, the Butterfly Center, and the people in the Border Support Network encampment in Texas. Other than what I have done, I have not seen this discussed in the media with regard to these allegations and the current lawsuit. In my upcoming shows, I will be sharing some of the more egregious allegations that Mary Ann Trevino Wright is making against those she claims are responsible for creating the caravan crisis, the migrant crisis at the border, and funding the border wall construction and the work on pipelines. A lot of this is going to be incredibly interesting, far more than her presentation, but I do recommend that you go check that out. We'll give you the link and we'll have that along with the program so that you can listen to our presentation as well as Marianne Trevino Wright's presentation at this border security conference. That's all I have for you tonight on A Mexican Crossing Lines. Thank you for listening and for sharing this important information with everyone that you know, and for being here with the Mexican Crossing Lines on 88.1 FM KPPP-LP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good night and God bless. Say good night, Duke.
Good night, Duke.